to the Shades of Entrepreneurship, where we interview entrepreneurs to inspire the future entrepreneur. I'll be your host, Mr. Gabriel Flores. So grab a drink, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. First Where Are They Now guest is a visual artist that creates whatever comes to mind. From blogging to podcast to augmented reality books, this soon-to-be medical doctor and PhD is creating illness. Please welcome back the founder of Illtopia Studios, Stephen Christian. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Shades of Entrepreneurship. This is your host, Mr. Gabriel Flores. This week, we are going to start with something different, a Where Are They Now series. And so really, it's what I'm focusing on is bringing on some former guests to really highlight what they've been doing since the podcast. Now, Stephen is really focusing on the AI world as well as a medical student at the same time. He's kind of doing everything at the same time. So what's going on, boss? How have you been? How has the world treated you since the podcast?
It's been really interesting, I would say. I got into medical school because I think last time I was like on the podcast in person, right? And
Correct.
So, since then, got into medical school. Things have been like really picking up in like the creative and tech space, which has been really interesting. Including like, all the AR stuff, all the AI stuff, it's everything in general. Like it's kind of taking on a life of its own. And then more importantly, just trying to get through like board exams and do like the regular medical school stuff and like taking care of myself and doing all that stuff. So each day has its new challenges, but overall, I think I'm like getting closer towards that goal of like being a physician that can do all these other things on the side that hopefully informs my my practice and get out of debt and take vacations and buy an electric vehicle and all that stuff, right? Like trying to live the American dream as best as I can, right? So
Now let's talk a little bit about these other side kind of adventures. You mentioned, the AI space, Illtopia Studios has been doing great. But you've been doing a bunch of other side projects. Tell for the folks that may have not listened to that first episode, give us a little background and then tell us what you have been doing.
Yeah. So on the side, when I'm not studying and all that, prior to medical school, I was a like VFX artist and a comic book illustrator. And I was like a 2D and 3D animator. Right. And so those are just sort of like those are like the talents that I had. And it was a matter of just trying to figure out how to apply those skills and those interests to work either for clients or for myself. Right. And so one of those was being able to start Illtopia Studios, which is pretty much a publishing company that allows me to like publish on my comics and do conventions and all that stuff. And then from there, posting stuff on YouTube and getting freelance work as an animator and a comic book illustrator and just sort of like an overall creative, people that want to have, any sort of like educational or entertainment experiences that they could use to promote their products or promote their music or anything like that. They would essentially reach out to me or people like me to do that. Since the pandemic, obviously I got deeper into like the more emerging tech side, and so being able to utilize my skills within more of an emerging tech area of augmented reality, virtual reality, artificial intelligence, and not only like streamlining my process, but like showing proof of concept of what the technology is capable of. In the future for broader users, right? And so people thinking about, because of like Pokemon Go and all these other sort of trendy things that have come out, I think it's informed not only my work, but also helped me, further the conversation about like how that technology can and cannot be used. From, the gimmicky stuff to like things that actually have an impact. And I think for me at least, being able to integrate that within books and printing to, lower costs, make the products that you produce more valuable, and also increase the engagement within the product so that they, take more away from the products, especially compared to other stuff, or just having a deeper connection to the work in and of itself, right? And so I like to think of it as like, if you have a book, you know, uh, what I do is I create books or take books, take things that appeal to a certain amount of senses, like human senses, sort of like, touch, see, hear, all that stuff. And I increase the amount of senses that are incorporated into that experience. And so for a book, a comic book that I come out with, normally you could touch it and you could, have that tactile experience, but more importantly, you're able to read it, and so you're able to like see, like look at it visually. Uh, my I have the ability to add more sensory, experiences to that, to where I could add audio to the book, so you could listen to it and sort of have that like audiobook or like a story time experience that follows the words. You can integrate depth and motion into it, and so being able to give people the opportunity to, move the products and then be able to explore the environments around it by movement and active engagement. And then more importantly, being able to really just like provide people with a deeper connection with fostering exploration. And so something that exists, right? Like say you're on a playground, and you want to, go on a scavenger hunt. You could incorporate those elements that you would normally have in a scavenger hunt within a storytelling experience or an educational experience without having to pay thousands of dollars for it, right? And so having a a book, and then having a phone, which everybody has at this point, and then utilizing the technology that's quite literally in our pocket to unlock experiences that would have otherwise cost you, a significant amount. And so it's a lot of like, sort of philosophical like exploration of these types of things that I get to like play around with in like my, in my leisure. And then people like take it seriously because they're like, oh my gosh, this is high level. I'm like, sure, but like I'm just sort of enjoying my time. But then really just sort of like having the opportunity to kind of pave the way for people that come after me, which is also kind of weird. Like it's kind of a weird feeling because I'm probably one of the only medical students that is asked to speak at conferences, like international conferences, right? And on things that are unrelated to medicine, and I have the opportunity to integrate, my understanding of medicine or how it could be applied to medicine in those spaces because I have that platform. Um, does it come with the money yet? No, but like it does come with opportunities, and I think the opportunities, being that I am a student, uh, it's really expensive to get an opportunity. And so I could afford to forego the payments till later, so that I have the opportunities that provides me with more opportunities for payments in the future. And so it's a lot. It's a lot to handle sometimes. And I always have to make sure to drink my water and stretch and just sort of take care of myself. But it's, this is a journey that I think I've been longing to sort of be on, and to finally be here. It's challenging in more ways than I expected, but it is like really, really fulfilling.
What's interesting is I'm realizing this kind of common theme. One of the things you're kind of talking about with your AI services is trying to improve the end user experience by sensorization, providing more sensors, but not only that, paving the way for the next generation of creators for them to see what they're able to create and think outside the box. And then you're also a provider. It seems like your core focus is constantly thriving to helping people. You're attending conferences and speaking about what you're doing and how you're able to integrate this AI with healthcare. Where does that passion come from? The passion to help people.
Um, I don't know. I think I think it's just more of a cultural thing. I think me having the like traditional black experience in America, uh, where I got opportunities by virtue of being a good athlete. And then within that space and navigating that space to get to college and then, trying to go to the pros and then that really fizzling out and all that. There's always a an aspect of the success that, when you get to that next level that you want to kind of pay it forward by doing the things that those did before you to help inspire you to get down that journey, right? And so for me, it was like, once I got to college, then I immediately graduated from, like getting trained by guys that went to the next level to training people that are trying to get to that next level, right? And then also training myself, but like there was this added responsibility that you have to be a mentor and you have to sort of be a positive role model for people to follow. And sometimes you get it right, sometimes you don't, but like, it's a way to sort of hold you accountable to not only the craft and what the goals that you had, but also to your community as a whole. Because, for better or for worse, like we're sort of, respective stewards of those ideals that our community holds, right? And I getting into medical school and seeing all that, it essentially just like that concept just like magnified, right? Like exponentially, like overnight. Like once I got into medical school, it was just like, oh, like, whether I like it or not, people are going to ask me to like, mentor them or help them get through things or, seek advice or whatever, even if I feel I'm not qualified to do that, right? Like it just sort of comes with that responsibility. And so for me, it's been more of a realization that like it's not going anywhere, and regardless of what area that I go into, whether it's innovative or not, it's not going anywhere. And so it's best for me to lean into it so that I, could sort of get used to it and find ways to just like impact people's lives for the better. Whether that is just inspiring somebody to just open up a sketchbook at the end of a stressful day and just like work on ideas that can turn into something or turn into nothing, or just avoiding like helping people advising people to just avoid the nonsense that kind of just comes with life so that you could study and do well on an exam, right? Like those things are for me those things are, it's like two sides of the same coin because like I deal with that every day, both of those things every single day. And I try to find a way to like find balance so that I don't like lose myself in the process. And so and then I get to meet a lot of people and and hopefully sell a lot of books and sort of not have to pinch pennies together and stuff like that. And so it's for me it's like all part of the journey and it's something that I expect.
One of the things you mentioned is the importance of mentorships and being a mentor and a mentee. Have you had some mentors? And if so, what are some of the things the mentors have taught you that helped being successful today?
Yeah. I mean, I would say for me, like I am a very like I take pride in like being impressionable, and I take pride in like trying to build relationships with people. And mainly because that is what is that's what has helped me get to the point that I am today, right? Like for better or for worse, once I finished playing football, I was kind of in an area of like, uncharted territory for me, right? Like, because most of my family and everybody was in sports. And for better or for worse, like they weren't in entertainment and they weren't in medicine, two of the areas that I ended up pursuing, right? And so when it came to just like, oh yeah, like how do I get into medical school, right? Like I actually had to just like go out and just like meet people that have done that and know better and then build relationships with them and then they've like helped me, right? And throughout that process it's I think some of the things that have been reaffirmed are just like one that like as long as you don't give up, things work out. Like regardless of how things turn out in the immediate future, in the long term, as long as you don't give up, like and they tell you no multiple times, like you just keep showing up and you keep doing the things until like you reach that status, right? Like just don't give up. And then two, it's like things aren't going to work out the way you expected, but everything works out in the end. Like it, and I think it piggybacks off of like the first thing of just like don't give up, because that's pretty much what stops people's progress in general. They get beat down, they get worn out, and then after a while, just like there's a breaking point, and then they go on to do something else, right? You're either going to die or you're going to get to your goal, right? Like, and one is going to happen. Both will happen, but it's just a matter of which one is going to happen first, right? And so though, like those two things have just like stood out to me across all the different mentors that I had. I think one thing has been very clear, and they often reaffirm it, is that like I attribute it to just being hard headed and just like wanting to do what I want to do, right? But like every time I like catch up with all my mentors and stuff like that, it's just reaffirming that like I stuck to it. I was accountable to myself, and I stuck to what I said I was going to do until it happened. And then we get to like joke around about it and all that stuff. And throughout that process, it sucks, right? Like it's hard, it's difficult. I'm going through it right now with like trying to, pass this board exam and all that stuff. And it's a lot of mental hurdles, but for the most part, it's like I'm going to get through it. I don't know when, but it's going to happen. I just got to keep grinding away like I've done with everything else, and take care of myself, and and prioritize things, because like there's other things that I want to do that I can't do to the extent that I want to, because I have to focus on these priorities. And so I think for at least like my mentors, um it's I make it a point to just like tell them what I'm going to do, and then like they just it gives them something to just like follow and track, and provide me with support however they can.
Yeah, I think there's a misconception sometimes with individuals going into the physician space that it's not an entrepreneurial journey, which it truly is. One of the things you mentioned, Stephen, is going out to conferences, writing a book. Being a first author in research papers is kind of like the creme de la creme when you're thinking of research. If you become the first author of a paper, that means you were kind of the one that discovered that thing, right? You were the one. Now, tell us about like what is your goal? What is you're talked about going through conferences and discussing conferences. You talked about writing a book. You talk about healthcare. What does Stephen's final entrepreneurial journey look like? What does that sunset look like?
Honestly, it's so I'm always like pinching myself when I think about like my interest in going to medicine, right? Because my interest in going into medicine was to get away from the entrepreneurial freelance space, right? Like that was literally what I decided to do, and that's why I chose medicine. Joke's on me.
Yeah, jokes.
Like physicians are the ultimate freelancers, right? Like physicians are like they're individually like certified by whatever state they're practicing in, and
Correct.
they have contracts with the hospitals that they work with. They are not employees.
Correct.
Like what? Like I was so upset when I like found that out, because I didn't know that, right? And but but one of the things that has been very that I've sort of grown to accept as I've progressed as a freelancer and as a entrepreneur is really just the agency and the freedom to control how I want my career and my legacy to be, right? And so for me, at this point, by virtue of Iltopia and the powers that be, I publish a new book, whether it's in tech or in the arts, every 6 months, right? So like $1 to $2 a year. And I go to and or speak at like 2 to 3 conferences a year, right? And so that's that's been pretty consistent since I started medical school. And as I progress, I assume that will continue to be. But as I progress, because I'm currently a MD PhD student now, and so I will, at the end of this, I'll be a double doctor. I'll have like an MD and a PhD. And my PhD is going to be will be in integrative neuroscience. So it's like super fancy, it's a lot of buzzwords and all that stuff. And the goal is to either go into sports medicine to be a traumatic brain injury specialist, which by virtue of that, I would essentially be opening up my own space. Whatever research I do out of it, I'll be able to apply to apply to my practice and just sort of like further that area of field of study. But more importantly, I was joking around with one of my friends about how in the ideal world, like those you have those like shopping centers, right? Like you have those like small shopping centers, right? And so in the shopping center, I'll have my practice, and then like right next door to like my practice is going to be like a creative studio, and so a space where I could like do all my creative stuff in house. And have like a storefront because I want to get like foot traffic and just like have a place to like have books and a bookstore or whatever. And then right next to that would be like a fitness center. And so being able to, tap back into like my athletic space and like being a personal trainer and all that. Because I do have a master's in freaking exercise sports science. And so it's like, have all that stuff. And so, need to get your body checked. You go to the clinic, and then any of the stuff that like any of the videos, any of the materials for educational purposes that I would provide to patients. I essentially do all that in-house. And so I do that next door and then, have that stuff over there. And then if I need to refer somebody out to like physical therapy or whatever, then I literally send them next door and then have them, get all their physical therapy stuff and really just sort of have this ecosystem that I built that allows me to, like focus on ideas, focus on connecting with people, and then providing people with, both educational and entertaining and empowering experiences, all within that little space, and for me, that would be really fulfilling. Although I will say that leans into the entrepreneurial space because those are three different entities that are cohabitating together that have P&Ls, they have light bills, they have all that stuff. But I think that placing that in the community, it makes it makes the philosophy that I have about, how I'm sort of approaching life and everything, it makes that just a lot more tangible. And when people see it, it's inspiring for them to sort of think outside the box and in one like very clear view, right? Because right now it's a lot better than what it used to be. But like as a pre-med, whenever I said, "Oh yeah, I do this on the side," people just didn't get it, and they would try to deter me away from it. And then like when I got into medical school, it was like the complete opposite, but like it was the complete opposite for like people in medicine where they'd be like, "Oh man, you could do this. There's so many ideas." I think COVID sort of helped with that, but like the lay person still doesn't really like it's still novel. It's like, "Oh, you got into medical school. Okay, so we're not going to tell you to stop, but we wonder how you're able to balance your time." Whereas people in medicine are like, "This is great. You just need to pass your exams." And so then I assume when it gets to me being a practicing physician and all that, the layperson will just be sort of like, "Oh wow, this is crazy. I need to learn more." Whereas, my peers in medicine will be like, "Okay, that's the person that we'll reach out to for X, Y, and Z, research papers and all that." Because that's starting to happen now, but I imagine it's going to get, exponentially crazier. And so for me, it's uh it's it's just sort of just steadying the process, just following the path that I just set for myself, and not really listening to people that don't have a positive outlook on what that future looks like.
Yeah, I always tell my friends, healthcare never sleeps. I swear we're just constantly moving forward and innovating. Now, what would you say, looking back, what is it, about 2, 3 years ago we first connected? Looking back, what would you tell a younger Steven today? Looking back a couple of years ago when they're first starting into this medical journey, what advice would you give a younger Steven?
Um, I would say be okay with failure. Like I think that's one of the things that like medical school has really made clear is that like you just don't get it right the first time. Like don't expect to get it right the first time. Don't expect to get it right the second time. Like, if you try every single day for a week, you may get it right at the end of the week. But throughout that process, it's really just a grind that you just have to have faith that it'll become better. And so it's like that, and it's really just like prioritize taking care of yourself. Like, whether it's getting sleep, eating consistently, stretching, working out, uh, because that is the only way to just like offset the like perpetual stress that like you're just going to be under, whether it's externally, internally from, traumatic life events that happen throughout, from having to just deal with cadavers and freaking, real people's problems. And it's your goal to just like be there, be present and try to help them get through it. Uh, and all that. And I think one of the things is with like prioritizing yourself, um, don't like change yourself for at the expense of, don't try to change yourself for medicine, or don't try to change yourself for anybody else. Cause, you know, when the going gets tough, like you gotta live with that. And I think I went through a moment of that where I kind of just like lost everything that like I sort of was used to or had going in. And then, when I kind of I got to a point where I had to like revisit all that stuff to kind of rebalance myself. And I think when with that, it really helped with like my self-esteem and my confidence, throughout this process of trying to overcome just these obstacles that everybody faces going through this process. And so it's like be you and be proud of being you, and don't waver from being you, because being you is what got you here, and being you is what will get you through it. And it's becoming very, very clear to me.
That is sound advice, my friend. Do not be afraid to fail. Be you and just continue to move forward. Stephen, Christian, I really do appreciate your time. The provider, the creative designer, the innovator himself. Man, this has been a great conversation. I'm really excited to continue to follow your career and your career path, and it continues. Now, for folks that might be interested in supporting you, to want to learn more about Eltopia, where do they catch you? Where do they find you?
Yes, yes. So Iltopia on all the social media stuff. I it's ILTOPIA. I did my best for like doing all the SEO stuff. So if you literally just type in Iltopia Studios, you'll find me. And then for support, really the best way is to just buy my books. Really, just like kind of just become a patron of mine. And so go to shop.iltopia.com. At this point, I developed intellectual property that allows me to uh, offload some stress, and also in that process, like create stuff that people would enjoy. And so, buy my plushies, buy my toys, buy my books, buy my stickers, and that's the best way to support me.
Awesome. I love it. And again, folks, for more information, this will be on the Shades of Entrepreneurship newsletter that you can actually subscribe to by visiting theshadesofe.com. Also, in the Shades of Entrepreneurship, you can shop our shop. And if you scroll to the very bottom, you'll see the Patreon page where you can actually help support the Shades of Entrepreneurship's growth by simply donating $5 a month. Very small, modest fee to help support the show. Stephen, again, thank you so much. Is there any last words you have for our guests or for our listeners?
Um, I live by this throughout, high school and college. I sort of have this motto that I've been continuing to live by, and it's sort of evolved in a way, but like it's simply just dare to be different. If you're different, then you stand out and you have a lasting impact if you're doing things for the right reasons. And to sort of build off of that, once you find what your difference is, then create opportunities to overcome adversity. And so, I have this additional mantra of just like create and conquer. And if you could do that, things all work out in the end. And so,
I like it. And like my yearly motto is embrace knowledge, seek growth. Oh, no, wait, what is it? Embrace growth, seek knowledge, and lead with purpose. I always have to look at my whiteboard just to make sure I get it correctly. Yes, folks, I do, in fact, have a whiteboard. All right, Stephen, thank you again so much. For those listening at home, again, you can follow me on the Instagram. YouTube is actually a new great way. So if you actually want to watch these conversations, you can, that's another great way. And I, too, am also working on my SEO. So if you actually search for the Shades of Entrepreneurship, you should be able to find it. If not, go ahead and look for @the_Shades of E on all your social sites. Thank you and have a great night.
Thank you for tuning in to the Shades of Entrepreneurship. For more information, please follow the Shades of E on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or visit theshadesofE.com.